Hi, I'm Seamless, and it's like midday Thursday, not even close to when there should have been a viewer track review video, which was yesterday, because yesterday was Wednesday. And so here it is happening now, at least. Hooray. If you would like to have one of your songs featured in one of these videos, all you have to do is head on over to the Discord channel, which is linked in the description of this video. There's a specific place to submit it that's linked, or it's labeled rather. Plus, there's also information on how to do so, and people help you do it and whatnot to make sure your like files are named right, and I know who you are, and they're appropriately leveled and all that good stuff. And then when you do, I'll maybe randomly select it. That's pretty much how it happens. I randomly select ones out of that list that are submitted in that Discord channel, and then I select it and put it in here like this one. This is False Hero and Outcry with Abyss. Let's see what this sounds like.
Find me in the shadows.
Okay. So, there are only really two things that are technically wrong about this track. The first one is that it peaks like a lot. And the second one is that it peaks the most in the high frequencies. And they're this is a bit of an interesting problem though, because normally this is a case of obvious top heaviness, but this track does not have that. This track is utilizing these aspects pretty freaking well. But the reason why this is still a problem is because the way that it sounds good to me right now, I have no way to guarantee is because of the track or because of the nature of the track's destruction on my system. Because of the clipping. That's the danger of clipping, is that the nature of which, like the nature of how it will respond ultimately will depend on the system that it's played on, and that means not on choices you make. And that's why you generally want to avoid it, like, pretty well. Totally. However, normally when I approach a track like this, I am immediately like, it's too loud up here. Like, it ruins all the impact up here because it's louder than all that. This track handled all of it pretty well, perfectly. I was mousing over the low end over here in the middle there because I wanted to show that it really took to heart that it didn't really matter how much of a difference there was in level as long as there was. And there was like, that was maybe, 3 dB difference in the sub of the kick and the sub of the sub. And there wasn't an overpowered sub. It felt like impact. Everything was exactly balanced. The way that everything was exactly as relative to itself as it should. It's just that it clipped. And so the challenge is to get it to feel exactly like this. But with, a full limit. With algorithmic distortion and whatnot. That's what saturation, when I'm using Maximus and using its distortion algorithms for. It's to do that. It's to make it clip, but to make it clip in a way that's repeatable on every system, because really what it's doing is while it's clipping, it's doing it within the spectrum of audio that's reliably reproducible on all systems as agreed upon by standards and whatnot. That's really the whole benefit of that stuff. That's the whole entire purpose of it. Because artistically and outside of that, this is beautiful. All the sound design is so heavy. The impact is perfect. Like, the mix of this is just awesome. And I really also dug how heavily you leaned in on the particular kind of scratchy nature of this sound design. Like, certain kinds of things can happen when you do, obviously, when you jam a bunch of stuff together and you distort it. But when you're creating kind of phasey results, you can phase forward or you can phase backwards. And they both sound a way. And one of them is a way that kind of sounds like this. And the problem with working with sounds like this is that it's hard to make it sound like the texture that you're getting is actually the texture of the sound and not like a mistake. Like, that happens a lot, especially if you do what I do and you accidentally combine it with vocals that are timed with it and make it sound like the vocals are clipping. It makes it sound like the vocals are clipping because you're introducing those frequencies that's usually how they sound. But in this case, it's really just extremely tied to the tone of the even later when they get the middle bits when they show up kind of as only their high half selves. They still cut through and are entirely of themselves, which is impressive. That how heavily you lean into it, and it worked that well. Yeah, and it worked that well. It's very good. This is a very good track. Save for the incredibly high level clipping going on at all times. Moving on, we have Papaya McFruity, a lovely name, with Abrupt Despots. Also very loud. I don't mind. All right, let's begin. In the beginning, there was a beginning. that was the most not ending that ever happened. That was like the ending didn't happen, but the song ended. That's it. That was the trippiest thing that ever happened in this track. All right, so this is delightful. I love this. I have no idea what anything was saying in this track. It felt like there was a story. I don't know what it is though. I only kind of felt like you were swearing because every once in a while there's a bleep, but it's also funny to see what bleeps look like in practice. But no track is fine, I guess. But all right, let's talk about. I'm assuming what this was going after is a kind of like Goa-y psytrance-y angle. And that being the case, because they're very busy. They're very full of this and this about this fast. Generally sound like this, but have a different power weighting. So we just have a little bit of our audio left over here. Let's look at like a bit in comparison to stuff I was saying before. Like mentioning in that last track that there was a visible difference in how loud the bass in their kick was versus the bass in their sub. And that a little bit is why this track kind of has this kind of clicky tappy thing going on versus having a hit like those other kinds of tracks like this do. And you get that hit by just having the thing be that powerful. And yeah, it's going to cause level problems, but you compensate for it with things like sidechaining and other like high passing elements out of the way of it. You know, that's why we all do. That's why we have to do that kind of thing, because that's what's required in order to feel like that's the power that's actually happening. But it's really just a magic trick. I feel more like magicians every day. Just the way this went and progressed though is honestly magic. I just like how much went into this. This kind of just like progression, a passion for a thing being done. Like the technical deficiencies do put a big damper on it, like a little bit, but it matters more that it's like this. It's honestly like that. Like it's like just keep doing it. Like it doesn't matter if you don't get better than this. It's still pretty great. But I also totally know what your goals are. I think I mentioned before in previous videos, feel free to link, like if you're one of the people in these videos, like if I actually have one of your tracks in here, feel free to like link inspiration or something of what you were doing, I wanted to do, just so I get a better idea, just in case I show up and look at it in the comments, because I oftentimes come at this a little bit blind, not quite knowing what the point or the thing was. Because sometimes the answer is, no, I actually wanted to sound just like this. And they showed me an example of someone that made a thing that sounds like literally identically like this. And then it's just like, oh, well, it turns out you know what you're doing. Cool. That is frequently the case. Moving on, we have Pain by Prism 3. Or I guess just Prism? Maybe Prism 3. I don't know if you're pronouncing the 3. Pronouncing the 3. Yeah. Okay. At the beginning we are... Knowing the time I am. Here we go. My mic was muted. Ha. Okay. So this was awesome. I like how low key this was. It's a little bit interesting because it seems like we have two kinds of steppy tracks with yelling Japanese ladies. Anyway, what I like about this one is actually the kick and the sub are the exact same level, but that level is maximum. And I think it kind of works out for this because look how well married they are. It's one of these things where, because it's the style is, call this, it's pretty well dubsteppy, I guess, but it's basically like under the classification of bass music, which is a word I've used before to describe things that I do, but it's not really the case. Like, it might be a sub-classification of bass music, but this is a lot more of what that actually is, which is to say that it's actually about bass. It's about literally sub-bass, feeling bass, doing things with bass, and honestly being minimal and sparse on the top of it to give you as much room as possible so that the listener is literally being moved by bass. And that's this. This is that a lot, and I like it. I'm a big fan. Didn't really feel anything totally super really wrong with this. Like, nothing I can see about this, about how far I'd push this. It's also one of these things where it's sort of hard to know how far to push, which is why the choice is to go as hard as you can, like, in terms of that one particular property, is a good one. Insofar as, like, you should also know yourself, like, is this gonna work or not? Like, sacrificing, like, because, like, it being louder isn't going to make a thing so much better that it might make it worse. You know what I mean? It's not like I was going to try to think of an idiom that could describe that, and honestly, I cannot. So, good job, me. But also, good job, Prism, with a 3. This track wasn't that painful? It's called Pain. No, well, I guess maybe. All right, well, there was yelling in it, so it counts. Maybe this one will be plain painful, too. This one, Bloody Chapel. We have Resonant Stems. Joop, joop, joop. Wow, this is really low, but they're really not. Okay, so super dynamics incoming. That was like a hearing test. It was like, how far down could you hear this? Yeah. So was this a pre-master? Because this is pretty pre-mastery. It seems like a good pre-master. This is the right kind of levels I'd expect from something like this. Like this input, how far away from it? Like this seems like an extreme difference versus what we were talking about, like in that Outcry track. What was on that track? False Hero and Outcry. I didn't want to just snub the other dude. He was there first on the first line. But point is after you murder it with compression, it gets a lot closer, and then it's a lot closer. And that's why we, like, into the compression, this is the kind of thing that you would want to see as a decent pre-master. Pre-master. Even still though, there's not really a lot of ways to know how this is going to behave in a master. I have a feeling I know where this is supposed to go feeling wise. You probably could do all of the work in the master on this as it is now and make it into something that could be what the final product is, but chances are what will happen is you'll do it and then you need to make changes in the mix. You'll be like, okay, well, this is actually fine, but like this sub isn't loud enough, or like how different this little level is actually too much. Like that suddenly is more apparent. Suddenly, all those little micro differences in levels that are so low because we made them that far away are a lot more obvious once we punch it up. That's why I usually recommend that, like, you generally don't get this far in a track before you make those choices. I usually try to get like this far. I make this part of the track, and then I do all of this as far as to have done, and then I do all the pushing, so that when I add new junk and write new things, I know how it'll behave. I know how, like, when I write a fill or write a smooth moment in element or other timed things that are difficult to guess, like this whole exchange, how this will feel might be weird once it gets under compression because how far away things are. Seems like it's enough away to be gone. Like the end of this track felt like it was far enough away to be gone at the end of this, but was it? How gone is gone? Like, and it'll feel like it essentially has been lengthened once compression gets involved. Transient processors, by the way, like when you see an option in Superior Drummer to like lengthen a thing, like through compression, how is it doing that? It's just doing that. Like things that have tails, we perceive them to end before they actually do. So if you increase the level of how loud the end of the tail is, then our perception of their end is lengthened. That's really how that works. Transient processors are just a different kind of just targeted compression on different types of, well, on transients. It's a transient deal. All right, moving on. We have Meloguy with Breaking Out. I hope this means breakbeat. You know how I feel about that. All right, coming on. nice, very pretty, very solid, and very impact laden. Very definitely like this mix was targeted towards making impact impactful, and it was, and it did. And a thing that it sacrificed to do that was high frequency cohesion. So the levels were nice. How high it all went was nice. It wasn't top heavy, and how it interacted with MP3s wasn't so bad. But here's a thought I had about it interacting with the MP3. I wonder if the texture of like MP3 style compression is going to be a nostalgic thing. Like, if it'll be a thing that we can eventually notice is gone to a point where a generation of people will like retro things that are that way by doing this. In the same way that records are. That, I wonder if that'll be a thing. We'll find out later, I guess. But yeah, everything else about this was pretty great. Like the sub presence is perfect. Like you could see this from space. Look at that. And the cut in it with the kick and the snare, perfect. Timing of it all perfect. Cutting everything else perfect. Like this is very like a cake of a track. It's super duper that. Progression was also nice. It was very captivating, you know? Like this is a genre that has been this for so long that at a certain point the impressiveness stops being that you can do it, and it starts being kind of like a jazz standard where it becomes embarrassing if you fuck it up. But you did not, so good job. Moving on, we have Akasu, Teien, Teien. I have no idea how to pronounce that. Teien. It's weird that when I read it, my brain has an easier time like feeling that out as a word, but like there's nothing coming out of my mouth that's gonna make me feel confident that that's what the word of that was. Alrighty then, though, coming up, here it comes. Let's see what it sounds like. That was definitely the most active outro yet. And probably the most active track yet. Wow. This started out being pure, just like, yeah, go write anime intros. Oh, that was so cool. To being like, whoa, I guess you're A5 too. Like that was a pretty cool twist into this. And then a lot of the sound design here was really cool, but I was especially interested and had a lot of fun with a lot of these like fill elements. Like that was cool. I think this one was one of the other ones that was neat. That I liked a lot. Or it was this one. Like, the thing I like about these kinds of tracks, like this Day 5, Xylent, Seven Lions, is not even really that the individual bits are that super complicated. It's just that like it's the difference in tone. It's the choice of how different the tone is from the stuff happening before and after it, and the way that they all interplay is in that sort of space. Always been a real thing I like about it, and it's in this track too. So good job about that. And because like sometimes I will come in with just like a naked saw wave on some stuff, and like just how nothing it is compared to how complicated the stuff is around it is a point a little bit. I wonder how poppy this mic is. Geez. Anywho, I have just pretty much no mixing complaints on this. It was pretty ballsy to have the main line lead and the bass at the same time at the end there with the full throttle like go beat. Like that, it worked out pretty well fine for it. I normally am all like go harder, but like honestly this is pretty much as far as I would push something like this. I honestly think you went a little too hard on how bassy some of the bits were relative to themselves, but like it was an inconsistent ride, but it was an interesting ride, so it's not as though that was a bad thing. Plus this would fly fine on the dance floor. No one would dare be like it was bad. Anyway, so yay for that entirely. Coming up next, we have Jazzcube Reharmonized by B with the period. Damn, though. All right. Jazzcube. Here comes this. another real ending, and then just a loop that kept going. I wonder if that was intentional. So that was certainly jazzish, jazzular, jazz adjacent. Not bad. Okay, the kick. Here's a good example of what I mean by like a thing gets too long when you compress it. Like this kick probably sounded fine at whatever if you had a low mix stage. I don't even know if you did, but this length of it is interfering with things in a way that makes the thing like this song has this kind of smooshed up quality, and part of the smooshing is that there's something doing the smoosh. And normally that's like a loud element like a bass or whatever, but in this case it's the kick. It's this thing doing a big old like for kind of a long time, a bit longer than the beat of this thing. So then you have to kind of be conscious about that, like how long do I make one of these? And it's probably beat related. Especially it basically depends on how fast you plan on using the thing. If you're only going to use it like once every single measure, then it could be like a lengthy, toothy thing, right? But if you're going to suddenly like double kick it, it has to be basically as long as the tap is. And that this track could use, I think, with a shorter kick at this pressure. Like everything else the same, just this kick, just bring it a bit. And I think it'll clear that particular quality if that's even the thing you care about. Like I like spooshy stuff too, so for all I know, this was you jamming. Some instruments had a bit too much power. So like the desire for loudness in this track, you know, I like it. I like how far it gets pushed, but the sort of the sacrifice is that certain elements can't have their real power. And the kick being as long as it is one of them. That like it can't. We're saying essentially it can't have its real power for as long as it has it because it's too long and too powerful. And that ends up being true for just about everything. Like how much like low frequency presence there is on certain instruments. Does it really need to be that powerful? And like the desire here is as much as you can shave off of the low end of something as you can is more beneficial to your headroom, because that's where all the power is on all of the things that do anything that are harmonic anyway. If there's noise and whatever, then just look for where the highest point is and then deal with that. But generally speaking, if you're doing a harmonic thing, that's its fundamental tone where its main power is going to be. And you can adjust and bring down and take down high frequency stuff, but it literally exponentially doesn't matter. And if you're trying to adjust for headroom issues, then adjusting the lowest powers is where it's at, which is why the first thing I thought of to address any of this was to talk about the kick, because it's usually the biggest, hardest, loudest problem, isn't it? But this was just a jaunty, fun time. I also like the story the progression of music told. Like, I just like active music. I don't know what it is. It's probably Fantasia. Did Fantasia do this to you too? Fantasia did this to me. What the heck else did this do to me? Peter and the Wolf. That's another one. Like music and story. It's just the human thing, right? But take it away and keep doing that. Like it's fine. This reminds me a bit though of when I just kind of was just like, oh yeah, if I just have jazz instruments, I mean that makes it jazz. Not really getting what the word meant. At the same time though, who cares? Like we all kind of got it, right? Like it's like when we say orchestra music, like there's that means so much. That means so much. But we all know what I meant when I said that. And that's not really like even the main predominant form of that word. Language, also fun. Cool. All right, well, that's everyone for today. Good job all, as usual. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. And have a nice day. Please and thank you.